Hello, my name is Jan Thielemann, and today I want to talk about the PO class and how you can provide your own models. So in iDempiere, when you open a window, for example the sales order window, you get like a graphical interface for a database table. In this case, the sales order window is displaying data from the C order table, and most of you should be familiar with the model view controller concept. So here is our view, and we also have a model behind this view which stores the information we are currently seeing. These models can be used to do calculations, or you can use them in the code to load a certain entry from the database. And every model in iDempiere is a child, or is extending the PO class. PO stands for persistent object, and it provides several methods you can use. For example, there are methods to get values of a certain column, to set values of a column, to save changes you did to the model, and there are also hooks you can use which get executed before the model is saved, after the model is saved, or before it is deleted, or after it is deleted. So to create your own models, what you have to do is you go to the application, log in as system administrator, and you have to create a table for your model. After you created a table, you can then generate a model class for this table. We will create a new table in another tutorial, so I will now use an existing table. So the first thing I want to do is to create a new plugin. So I go to the plugin development section and create a new plugin project. Because I don't want to get my own plugins into the main repository from iDempiere, I uncheck the use default location, click on browse, and here I will create a new directory, and I call it like org model test, and I also use this name as the name of my plugin. I use the Equinox OSGI framework. Here I can provide a name, an ID, which has to be unique, and normally I check the Java 6 execution environment, because it always can happen that a client uses the Java 6 environment and not the Java 7. So I created this plugin here, and now I create a new package in which I will place my models. Here I call it org model. Finish. Now I can use the process for generating models, which is called model.generator. Here I select my plugin, my package name is org model, And now I want to provide a model class for COrder. The COrder model has the entity type D. If you're not sure what you should enter here, then you can check it in the database. So I want to check it now. I open pgadmin, which is a graphical front end for the Postgres databases. Oh, I made a mistake because I have the wrong username. So I switch to the right username. Yes, and this is the table. All the informations about tables are stored in AD table. So this window, table and column, and the first tab table is displaying information from AD table, and the column tab from AD column. So here I have the informations about the COrder table, and as you can see, the entity type is D, which stands for dictionary. So now I create the model for orders. It is case sensitive, so make sure you're having the right name here. Click on generate, and it will generate these two classes for you. Now I create a third class, and I call this class morder, because models in iDempiere normally consist of three classes. The first class is the interface class, and it has information about all the getters and setters and column names of this table and the table name itself. The X class is the implementation, and it extends the persistent object and implements this interface. And here you have implementations of all the getter and setters. Then the third class is the morder class, which is the model class you normally put your business logic in. And the reason why you want to put your business logic in this class is that if there are changes on the database and you regenerate the model, all the changes you put in the X class will be lost. But by extending the X class here, you don't have this problem anymore. So here's a lot of warnings, and these warnings appear because we have not set up our dependencies. To do this, go to your meta-inf folder and open the manifest. Here, go to the Dependencies tab, and that the iDempiere base plugin, as well as the iDempiere plugins util. So in most of the plugins you create, you need at least these two plugins, because they contain, for example, the iDempiere base plugin contains the persistent object class, and here you have some other things you may need for your plugin. So now the errors are gone, and I can create my own model class. The first two things you have to do is to add both default constructors, and I do this by generate the first one, cut it, generate the first one, and the second one, and paste the first one. And also it's a good idea to generate a serial ID. and save it. The next thing you have to do, so iDempiere can know something about your own model class, is to create a factory for this. So I create a new package and call it org factories. And here I create a new class and call it my model factory. Your model factory has to implement the iModel factory interface and its methods. So iDempiere will use this class to determine if your plugin provides a model for a given table name. And if so, it will ask your model factory to provide a persistent object implementation for a given table name. So what I do now is I check if the table name equals my order table name. And if it does, I return a new instance. I return the class of the model object. In the other method, I return a new instance. And that's why we have to implement both constructors here. So we have the record ID and we have the transaction name, but we don't have a context to provide. And to get a context, you can call the environment class and the method getContext. Now I can copy this, place it here, and just replace the record ID with the result set. This model factory is not available yet, so to make it available you have to create a component definition so the OSGI framework can find this factory. To do this, you click on Create New and Other, and in the plugin development section you choose component definition. Here you have to provide a name, for example my model factory, and click on Finish. Then you have to provide a unique name, and I like to use the name of my plugin, which is org-evenos model test, and then I say model factory, and now I know this name is unique. Click on Browse and select your class. Here you have to add a property. This property is called service.ranking. It's an integer, and I give it a value of 100. And you have to add this property in nearly every component definition you create, because when the OSGI framework asks for a service, then it gets a list of every class who provides this service in order of their service ranking property. And if you don't add this property, what the OSGI framework will find is the default model factory provided from the base plugin. And this model factory, the default model factory, will return a default model. So normally it should be the last model factory when the OSGI framework asks for model factories, and if it's before your own implementation for a model factory, it will return a default model, and your own model will never be loaded. So make sure you don't forget the service ranking property And here in the Services tab you have to add the iModel Factory service. So now OSGI knows that your plugin provides the service for the iModel Factory and where it can find it. Then go back to your manifest and check that your component definition is added with the service component key to your manifest. If this is not in the manifest, then when the framework loads your plugin, it will not find the component definition by itself. It will look into the manifest and see what services your plugin provides, and make sure it is in it. So now we have a model factory which can provide our new model. We have the model right here, and what we can do now with this model is we can override several hooks. Like I already mentioned, we have the before save hook, we have the after save hook, the before delete hook, and the after delete hook. Now what these hooks do, when I create a new entry and I hit the save button, then the before save hook is called, and you can do some validation, for example, or set a certain value of a field if it's not already set, or change value of other fields based on some fields, and then the entry is stored into the database and made persistent. Then the after save method is called, where you again can do some validation, or for example create a history entry or do other stuff. In the before method you get only a boolean if the record is new. So when I firstly create a new record, then this variable is true, and if I change something and save the record again, then it is false. And here you also get a boolean about the success. So when I return false in this method, then I will also get a false here. Otherwise it will be true. So by default you return this, but what you normally want to do is to return true or false by yourself, because this method returns true. So you can put some code in here in these methods, and when you return true, everything is okay, but if you return false, you will get a warning, like here, but it will only say cannot save. The same goes for delete. So if I already have an entry and I delete it with this button, the before delete method gets called, and if I return true, the entry gets deleted, but if I call false, then the entry won't be, if I return false, the entry won't be deleted. Now C order is a table, and it already has a model in the base plugin. So when you override a model which already exists, what can happen is that in the base plugin there are calls to order directly, and it won't be loaded with your plugin. So it's always a good idea then, when you want to override a basic model class, that you don't generate these two classes, and that you not extend the X class. So what I do now is to rename this. Refactor rename. And here I extend the original order class. base plugin. And now if I added custom getters and setters, for example, I could go to this class here, copy me this getter and put it in here, and also go to the I class and copy me this class variable, like here. So that's the way how we at Evenos override base models. And if you have a complete custom table, then you would create the I and the X class. So now I don't need these two classes anymore. Hit the save button. This is a basic getter and setter, so I don't want it here. And now, if I would create a new order entry, then my own model would get called. So let's try this. If you want to log something in iDempiere, then please do not use the system.out.println method, but rather use a clogger. Now I can use the clogger and log information on the console. When you use this logger, you have several options. You have different levels on which you can log, and they are by order: server, warning, info, config, fine, finer, and finest. And you can set the level which you want to log in the application. So for example, if you only want to show warnings and server, then only these two kinds of log will be shown on the console. And if you choose it to finest, for example, you get a very deep information about what's going on in the application. Okay, now I created this new plugin, but iDempiere will still not know about it, and that's because when I start the server, then you can see that my plugin which I created is not activated yet. So I activate it and run the application. Now I create a new entry, save it, and we didn't see any logs. That's not good. I'll check it, what I forgot, and see you in a second. So now I'm back, and I found out what I forgot. What I forgot to mention is that by default your plugin doesn't get started. So if I I choose auto start default, and by default it means false. You can either check it to true, so it gets automatically started. And what else you can do is type SS on the console, which stands for short stitches, and then search for your bundle. In my case it's the number 142, and then you type in start 142, and this will start your bundle. And now if I create a new entry here, save it, and we see that our custom model was loaded. So this is how you provide your own models and how you override model hooks. See you in the next video.